Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a closer look at a real giant of English literature, William Shakespeare's Hamlet.
Exactly. And our guide for this journey is a Saddleback Classics Study Guide. Now, these guides are great because they're designed to make classics accessible. So think of this as getting the essentials, the key takeaways on Hamlet without getting too bogged down right away.
Right, so our mission today is pretty clear. We want to pull out the main facts about Shakespeare himself, get a feel for the times he lived in, introduce the key characters in Hamlet, and then walk through a summary of the plot, basically give you a solid foundation.
A good footing, yeah. Enough to understand what's going on and maybe spark some curiosity to, explore more later.
Okay, let's dive in. First up, the man himself, William Shakespeare.
So, Shakespeare. Born in Stratford-upon-Avon, 1564, and what's pretty amazing is that his actual house, his childhood home, is apparently still standing.
Wow, really? That's incredible.
Yeah. His mother, Mary Arden, she came from a fairly well-off farming family. And his father, John Shakespeare, was a glove maker and a trader, too. Seems like he was pretty successful for a while.
So a reasonably comfortable start in life, it sounds like.
Yeah.
What about his education? Did he go to school?
It seems very likely, yes. The guide suggests he probably attended the local Stratford Grammar School. There, he would have studied the Latin classics, writers like Cicero, Virgil, Seneca, probably until he was about 13, maybe 14.
That's a pretty intense classical education for that age.
Absolutely. And you can kind of see those influences later in his plays, can't you? The structure, the themes. Even knowing he read those texts tells you something.
But he didn't go on to university, did he? He seems to have left school relatively early.
That's right. The why isn't totally clear. The guide mentions his father might have run into some financial problems, so maybe William had to, start working. But there's no actual record confirming that.
And then there's that period, the lost years, right,
Mhm.
between leaving Stratford and popping up in London.
Yeah, exactly. Until about 1592, we don't really know what he was doing. He just appears in London, already working as an actor and a playwright. There's one theory, sort of a guess, really, that he might have been a schoolmaster for a bit.
A schoolmaster. Interesting. It fills the gap, I suppose.
It does. It keeps him involved with language, with learning. But whatever he was doing, by 1592, he'd clearly arrived.
He certainly had. The guide says by then he'd already published 2 poems that were popular and written at least 3 plays. That's quite a start.
It's incredibly fast, isn't it? Suggests, well, sheer talent, obviously, but also probably a massive amount of work. He must have really understood what audiences wanted.
And he wasn't just artistically successful. He did pretty well financially, too.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Became quite wealthy. By 1597, he bought a really grand house back in Stratford. Get this, it had 10 fireplaces.
10 fireplaces. See, that detail makes him seem much more real, not just a historical figure.
Totally. And the next year, 1598, he got a 10% share in the Globe Theatre, plus a nice house in London. So yeah, doing very well for himself.
And incredibly productive artistically with his theater company, the King's Men. They were putting on plays weekly.
Seems like it. The pace sounds exhausting, doesn't it? They think maybe rehearsing in the morning, acting in the afternoon, and then he'd be writing at night, just nonstop theater.
Wow. When did he eventually slow down?
Well, after about 1612, the guide says he spent more time back in Stratford with his family. He died there a few years later, aged 52. That was April 23rd, 1616. You can still visit his tomb in Holy Trinity Church.
It's pretty remarkable, isn't it? Considering his parents were probably illiterate and he never went to university.
Exactly. Makes his achievement seem even bigger. Widely seen as, the finest poet and playwright we've had.
Yet, as the guide points out, there is still so much we don't know for sure. Lots of mystery.
Definitely. The first proper account of his life wasn't written until almost 100 years after he died. So a lot of it is piecing things together, making educated guesses.
Okay, so that's a snapshot of Shakespeare. Now let's zoom out a bit. What was happening in the world around him? What about the times, say 1564 when he was born?
Right, 1564. Well, London's population was around 100,000, which was pretty big for the time. Interestingly, the horse-drawn coach was apparently introduced in England that year, a new way to get around.
Huh.
On the art side, the great artist Michelangelo died in 1564, so the end of an era there. But it was also a tough year. There was a major plague outbreak in London. Killed over 20,000 people.
Grim. Really shows the precariousness of life back then.
Absolutely. A city full of life, but also danger.
And then fast forward to 1616, the year he died.
Yeah.
What was the world like then?
Okay, 1616. Well, Sir Walter Raleigh was setting off on his search for El Dorado, the mythical city of gold. Over in America, tobacco was becoming a big deal in the Virginia colony.
The beginnings of huge changes there.
For sure, and sadly, Pocahontas died that year too. And in science, a big moment. The Catholic Church told Galileo to start promoting his scientific ideas.
All right, the whole Earth revolving around the sun thing. A major clash.
Definitely. So, lots going on globally while Shakespeare was creating these plays that we're still talking about today.
It really puts his work in context. Okay, now let's narrow it down again and focus on Hamlet. Who are the essential characters we need to keep track of?
All right, the main players in Hamlet. Obviously, you've got Hamlet himself, the Prince of Denmark. He's our protagonist.
Got it.
Then there's Claudius. He's the new king of Denmark. He's Hamlet's uncle. And crucially, he's the brother of the previous king, Hamlet's father, who has recently died.
Okay, Uncle Mary's mother becomes king. Already complicated.
Very. And speaking of the dead king, there's the ghost, the spirit of Hamlet's murdered father. A key figure, obviously.
Right. The catalyst in many ways.
Then we have Gertrude. She's the queen, Hamlet's mother, now married to Claudius.
Her quick remarriage is a big issue for Hamlet, isn't it?
A huge issue. Then there's Polonius. He's the chief advisor to King Claudius. A bit of a, well, a busybody, maybe.
Okay, and Horatio.
Horatio is Hamlet's good friend. Loyal, trustworthy, kind of Hamlet's confidant.
Every protagonist needs one of those.
True. Then you've got Polonius's family. His son is Laertes, and his daughter is Ophelia.
Ah, Ophelia. Hamlet's love interest. Or potential love interest.
Exactly. Their relationship is central and tragic. So Laertes is her brother. You can already see how intertwined these families are.
Definitely.
Ugh.
Any other key figures?
Yes, a few more. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, they're described as former schoolmates of Hamlet. Their loyalty gets tested.
Right, I remember them.
Then there's Fortinbras, who is the Prince of Norway. He's kind of a foil to Hamlet, another prince whose father was killed. He pops up throughout.
Okay, Fortinbras of Norway.
We also have Voltimand and Cornelius, who are Danish ambassadors sent to Norway. Minor roles, but part of the political backdrop. And the guards at the castle, Elsinore, Marcellus, Bernardo, and Francisco, they're the first ones to see the ghost.
Oh, okay. The ones who kick things off.
Pretty much. And finally, Reynaldo, who is Polonius's servant, and Osric, a courtier who shows up near the end with a specific message.
Got it. That gives us a good map of the characters. So let's get into the story itself. The guide breaks it down by act. What happens in Act 1? How does it all begin?
Okay, Act 1. It starts on the cold battlements of Elsinore Castle. The guards, Marcellus and Bernardo, along with Hamlet's friend Horatio, see the ghost of the recently deceased King Hamlet.
Spooky start.
Definitely sets the mood. They realize this is serious and decide they absolutely have to tell Prince Hamlet. Meanwhile, inside the castle, the new King Claudius and Queen Gertrude are trying to persuade Hamlet to, stop mourning his father so much, get over it.
Which he's obviously struggling with.
Massively, he gives his first big soliloquy, revealing just how depressed he is and how disgusted he is by how quickly his mother remarried his uncle Claudius. It's really raw grief and anger.
And then Horatio tells him about the ghost.
Exactly. Hamlet's immediately intrigued and determined to see it for himself. He makes the others swear not to reveal what they've seen.
Okay. What else happens in Act 1? We met Laertes and Ophelia.
Right. Before Laertes leaves for France, he gives his sister Ophelia some brotherly advice, basically, warning her off Hamlet, don't trust his intentions, he's a prince, you're not, etc.
Protective or maybe controlling?
Bit of both, maybe. Then their father, Polonius, gives Laertes his own famous long-winded advice on how to behave in Paris. And he doubles down on the warning to Ophelia. Stay away from Hamlet. She agrees to obey him.
Poor Ophelia caught in the middle.
Yeah, and the act ends with Hamlet meeting the ghost. And the ghost drops the bombshell. He didn't die naturally. He was murdered, poisoned by his own brother, Claudius.
Wow.
And the ghost demands revenge, tells Hamlet to avenge his murder. So bang, right at the end of Act 1, we have murder, betrayal, and this huge burden of revenge placed on Hamlet.
Okay, so that sets everything up. Act 2 must deal with the fallout. Hamlet trying to figure out what to do.
Exactly. Act 2 starts with Ophelia telling her father, Polonius, about Hamlet acting really strangely towards her, like grabbing her, staring, looking totally disheveled.
Okay, so he's clearly affected.
Definitely. But Polonius immediately jumps to the conclusion that Hamlet's madly in love with Ophelia and that she's the cause of his weird behavior because she's been rejecting him, as Polonius told her to.
Ah, so Polonius thinks it's love sickness.
Yep. And he rushes off to tell the king and queen. They're worried, too, so they summon Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, Hamlet's old friends, to try and spy on him, figure out what's wrong.
Using his friends against him. Classic.
Pretty much. Meanwhile, those ambassadors, Voltman and Cornelius, come back from Norway. Good news, sort of. Fortinbras isn't going to attack Denmark. He's going to attack Poland instead and just needs passage through Denmark.
A little side plot there.
Yeah, a political thread. Polonius, still stuck on his theory, suggests they arrange a chance meeting between Hamlet and Ophelia so he and Claudius can eavesdrop and see if love is really the problem.
More spying.
Lots of spying in Elsinore. Hamlet, though, he sees right through Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. He knows they were sent for. They then mention that a group of traveling actors has arrived at the castle.
Ah, the players.
Exactly. And this gives Hamlet an idea. A brilliant one, really. He asks the actors if they can perform a specific play, The Murder of Gonzago, but with some extra lines that he'll write himself.
Why that play?
Because he plans to stage a scene very similar to how the ghost described his own murder. He wants to watch Claudius's reaction. The play's the thing, he says, wherein I'll catch the conscience of the king.
Clever. Using theater to expose the truth. So Act 3 is where we see if this plan works.
Yes, Act 3 is hugely important, very dramatic. First, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern report back to Claudius and Gertrude. They haven't found the cause of Hamlet's madness, but he's excited about the play.
Okay.
Then Claudius and Polonius go ahead with their plan to spy on Hamlet and Ophelia. This is where Hamlet delivers the famous to be or not to be soliloquy, pondering life and death. Then Ophelia comes in, trying to return his gifts, and he just lays into her, tells her he never loved her, tells her to get thee to a nunnery. It's incredibly harsh.
Brutal, especially if they're being watched.
Exactly. Claudius, listening, decides Hamlet's not lovesick, he's dangerous. His melancholy is brooding on something else. But Polonius still thinks he might be wrong. Later, everyone gathers for the play. Hamlet acts manic, making pointed comments.
And then the scene he wrote.
Yes. When the actors perform the scene depicting a king being poisoned in the ear while sleeping, just like the ghost said happened to him, Claudius completely loses it. He stands up, calls for lights, and storms out. Hamlet and Horatio are convinced that reaction confirms Claudius's guilt. Absolute proof for them.
So what happens next? Claudius must know Hamlet suspects him now.
Oh, yeah. Things escalate fast. Gertrude, upset by Hamlet's behavior at the play, summons him to her chamber. Polonius decides he needs to eavesdrop again, so he hides behind a tapestry, an arras, in Gertrude's room.
Oh, Polonius. Bad idea.
Terrible idea. Hamlet goes to see his mother. They argue fiercely. He hears a noise behind the arras, thinks it's Claudius spying, and impulsively stabs through the tapestry.
Oh, no.
But it's not Claudius, it's Polonius. Hamlet kills him. Mistaken identity, tragic consequence.
Huge turning point. He's killed Ophelia's father.
Exactly. While Hamlet is confronting his mother, the ghost appears again, but only Hamlet can see it. The ghost reminds him his mission is revenge on Claudius, not to drive his mother mad. Hamlet then leaves, dragging Polonius's body away. A really intense, bloody act.
Wow. Okay, so Act 4 has to deal with the fallout from Polonius's death.
Absolutely. Act 4 starts with Claudius realizing Hamlet meant to kill him. He sees Hamlet as a direct threat now, so he tells Hamlet he's being sent to England immediately, for his own safety, supposedly.
But really to get rid of him.
Exactly. Claudius sends sealed letters with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, ordering the King of England to execute Hamlet on arrival.
Treacherous.
Totally. As Hamlet is leaving, he sees Prince Fortinbras leading his army across Denmark to fight in Poland over a tiny, worthless piece of land. Seeing Fortinbras's determination makes Hamlet feel ashamed of his own inaction and delay in getting revenge. It spurs him on again.
A moment of reflection for him. What's happening back at Elsinore?
Chaos, basically. Ophelia, devastated by her father's death at the hands of the man she loved, appears to have gone mad. She sings fragmented songs, hands out flowers. It's heartbreaking.
Oh, poor Ophelia.
And then Laertes returns from France, furious about his father's death and his sister's condition. He storms the castle, demanding revenge.
So now Laertes wants revenge, too.
Yes. Claudius manages to calm Laertes down and channels his anger towards Hamlet. Just then, news arrives. Hamlet's ship was attacked by pirates, and he's back in Denmark.
What? Pirates? That seems convenient.
It's a bit random, yeah, but it gets Hamlet back for the final confrontation. So Claudius and Laertes then plot Hamlet's death. They plan a fencing match between Hamlet and Laertes.
A duel.
But a rigged one.
Oh.
Laertes' sword will be sharpened and tipped with deadly poison. And just in case that fails, Claudius will prepare a poisoned cup of wine for Hamlet to drink if he gets thirsty.
A backup plan. Devious.
Very. Just as they're finalizing this nasty plot, Gertrude comes in with more terrible news. Ophelia has drowned, fell
Um,
from a willow tree into the river, accident, suicide. It's ambiguous.
Just tragedy piling on tragedy.
It really is. Sets the stage for a very grim final act.
Okay, so we arrive at Act 5, the final act. How does it all end?
Act 5 opens, surprisingly, with a bit of dark humor. Two grave diggers are digging Ophelia's grave and debating whether she deserves a Christian burial if she killed herself. They joke about death being the great leveler.
A moment of philosophical reflection amidst the chaos.
Right. Hamlet and Horatio arrive on the scene. Hamlet talks to one of the gravediggers, finds the skull of Yorick, his father's old court jester. This leads to another famous meditation on mortality, Alas, poor Yorick.
A very iconic moment.
Then Ophelia's funeral procession arrives. Laertes, in his grief, leaps into the grave. Hamlet, revealing himself, leaps in too, grappling with Laertes, both claiming they loved Ophelia more. It's raw and messy.
Tempers are high.
Very. Later, Hamlet explains to Horatio how he escaped Claudius's plot. He found the letter ordering his execution, replaced it with a forgery ordering the execution of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern instead, and sealed it with his father's ring.
So Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dealt with.
Offstage, yes. Then Osric, the courtier, arrives with the invitation to the fencing match with Laertes. Hamlet accepts, despite having a bad feeling about it.
The final showdown.
Exactly. The duel begins. Hamlet scores the first couple of hits. Gertrude, pleased, decides to drink to Hamlet's health from the poisoned cup Claudius prepared for him. Claudius tries to stop her, but it's too late.
I don't know.
Then, during a scuffle, Hamlet and Laertes somehow exchange swords. Laertes wounds Hamlet with the poisoned blade. Then Hamlet wounds Laertes with the same poisoned blade.
So they're both poisoned now.
Yes. Laertes, dying, confesses the poisoned sword, Claudius's scheme. He blames the king. Gertrude collapses, crying out that she's been poisoned, and dies.
Chaos.
Utter chaos. Hamlet, finally knowing Claudius's treachery for certain and realizing he's dying anyway, forces Claudius to drink the rest of the poisoned wine and stabs him with the poisoned sword for good measure. Claudius dies.
Revenge final.
Finally. Laertes dies too. But first he exchanges forgiveness with Hamlet. Hamlet, knowing his end is near, asks Horatio to live and tell his story accurately. His famous last words are, "The rest is silence." Then he dies.
Devastating. Everyone's gone.
Pretty much the entire main cast. Just as this carnage settles, Fortinbras arrives back from Poland with his army, having heard about the duel. He finds the entire Danish royal family dead. Horatio repairs to tell him the story, and Fortinbras, seeing the vacuum of power, claims the throne of Denmark. He orders a soldier's funeral for Hamlet.
So order is restored, in a way, but at a terrible cost.
Exactly. A very bleak restoration.
Wow. A truly devastating ending. So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive into Hamlet, what are the main things listeners should take away from this overview?
Well, we've definitely covered a lot. Hopefully you got a clearer sense of Shakespeare's own life story and the world he was writing in. We've met the key players in Hamlet, all those interconnected, doomed characters. And we've traced the plot right from that initial ghost sighting through all the plotting, the madness, the deaths, right up to that incredibly tragic final scene.
It's such a cascade of events, isn't it? When you lay it out like that, it really makes you wonder. Considering Claudius's crime, the ghost's demand, Hamlet's own nature, all the spying and plotting, was it all just inevitable? Was tragedy baked in from the start?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Could things have gone differently? Were there moments where a different choice could have stopped the bloodshed?
Or maybe what part of this quick look sparked something for you, the listener? Was it a character's motivation, a particular scene, the play within a play?
Yeah, hopefully this overview makes you want to maybe dig a bit deeper. There's so much more in the play itself, the language, the deeper themes about revenge, madness, morality, action versus inaction.
Absolutely. It's a play that rewards rereading and rethinking. So much to explore. A true masterpiece, really.